Why is that so satisfying to watch? There's a moment in almost every action movie or old Western where the hero draws a gun or cocks it or does whatever, and all of a sudden you're locked in. Even though you know that the hero is probably going to come out on top, you still are locked in, and it is so satisfying to watch. In this video, I'm going to explain why I think that is. As you can see, I'm a pretty big pop culture fanatic. My earliest memories, honestly, are going to see the movies with my dad. One of those, and probably the most formative movie of my childhood, is Starship Troopers. Saw that in 1997 with my dad. Thank you, Dad. And it left a very lasting impression, as you can imagine. I literally have the earliest memories of running through the playground, pretending I was Johnny Rico with my friends, making machine gun noises and saying, "Come on, you apes! You want to live forever?"
Come on, you ape! You wanna live forever!
So that has left such an impact on me, and obviously through all the blood and violence and gore and all the cool gunplay in that movie, there was just something so special about that'll always stick with me. And to this day, I will always hold that heavily influenced my decision to join the Marine Corps. So movies really do have a lasting impact on us personally and culturally. If you're a gun guy like me, you know that guns are often very cringe in movies and they're portrayed very inaccurately, but sometimes there's a few gems out there that, even if they are cringe or inaccurate, you just cannot get over the fact that it's awesome and over the top and amazing. And they kind of make up for the inadequacies and the cringe, to be honest. I'm going to dive into what I think makes guns such a lasting staple in the zeitgeist of American culture and, by extension, by world culture. And I'm also going to go over the guns that influenced me the most, to the point where I had to actually buy them myself. And I will go over which ones, and I will show you the ones that I have that are pretty iconic. I think that guns are a symbol of power. And we don't just like them because of the violence, and everything like that. We like them because of what they represent. Power, control, identity, and the stakes involved in using a gun in real life, and what real life means to us. If you have a gun, you almost have instant control over a situation. There's an old saying that says, "God made men, but Samuel Colt made all men equal." And basically that means even if you're a 5'2" short king, you still have a chance against a big ass 6'8" brute like the Mountain on Game of Thrones, if you have a gun, that is. So, but there's really not a lot of other weapons that don't require a lot of strength or a lot of skill to use, that you can't defend yourself from somebody or something like an animal or something along those lines. That's why they will always stick with us, and they will always have a lasting impact on us. At its core, the gun is an ultimate symbol of power and control. It instantly shifts control, or shifts who has control in a scene in a movie. That's why, again, it is so suspenseful as well. The strongest fighter and the strongest character, it doesn't really matter. If you have a gun, then that's what makes the difference.
Guys, I don't think any of us should have a gun.
Yeah.
Well, one of us does, so the end.
That's also why it works so well in storytelling. It's visual and instantly recognizable by pretty much anybody on the planet. Guns like the AK-47 are literally on a country's flag in Africa because it's an instantly recognizable symbol of power and strength. You also don't need to even speak the same language to understand when someone's pointing a gun at you, or when they cock a 12-gauge shotgun, you know exactly what the hell they mean.
Oh, hold up there, Buster. Oh, hey, couldn't help but notice you're trespassing on my land.
Guns instantly raise the stakes in a way that almost nothing else can. A fist fight can be long and prolonged and drawn out and, last a long time, and again, largely depends on the skill. Same with like a sword fight. That entirely depends on skill and, how long someone is trained. But a gun, that can be pretty much wielded by anybody of any size and instantly put down somebody who is threatening you. So it is, very suspenseful, and it does raise that stake when somebody raises that gun. The gun that a character chooses often tells you a lot about the character itself, whether you realize it or not. Even the choice not to use a gun tells you a lot about the character and who they are.
You gotta be kidding me.
No guns, no killing.
Where's the fun in that?
You can have a really calm shooter that, is with a straight face is cocking it and handling it and field stripping it with precision. That tells you he's probably professional. He's done that before, or he's a psychopath for that matter. There's also the reckless one that is just shooting wildly and sporadically. That tells you that they've never done it. They tell you that they're scared or that they have no understanding of guns. That tells you more about their character. There's also the characters that are reluctant to use a gun, but they eventually will, and they're usually the reluctant hero, kind of like almost like a Jon Snow character. Some guns are instantly recognizable and are an extension of the character itself, like specific guns like the DL-44, Han Solo's blaster, instantly recognizable. The Dirty Harry's Model 29 Smith & Wesson revolver, instantly recognizable. You just know who that character is depending on what that gun is. It's also not just about the gun, it's about who's holding it and the story of why and how that we find so interesting in storytelling. Another thing that we love about guns in movies is the sound. The sound of a gun cocking. The sound of a rifle round going off. The sound of a suppressed pistol going off is instantly recognizable to most people. And it's very, very iconic to the point where they use that same suppressed pistol soundbite in almost every movie. For better or worse, obviously it's mostly inaccurate. If you've ever shot a suppressed gun in real life, you know this. Most guns don't sound like a mouse fart. And now in the days of John Wick, where you have choreography with gunplay, the sound and the aesthetics of the gun is even more important for the average user because it's so cool. And we, as moviegoers, have seen so much guns and so much gunplay nowadays that our standards are getting higher and higher. So we want to see better and better quality, like stuff with John Wick. However over the top they have gotten in the most recent movies. I still think that the first one is amazing, not too over the top and not too outlandish, and great level of gunplay, and Keanu Reeves did such a great job, and he obviously took the time, and it tells in the training and the usage of those guns. It's incredible the amount of work that he put in to make it look so good and so seamless on the screen like that. And as more movies like that have came out and YouTube has came out, more and more content creators are making videos and making stuff with guns. And there's people that are, doing these insane trick shots, and the level of skill that's required has caused all of our standards to get higher and higher as time goes on. And more people relate to them because they, at least in America, there's 400 million guns in private hands. So that's a lot of people that are influenced by the culture of guns in movies and that like to see it and like to see it portrayed accurately on screen. Modern movies don't just show a gunfight of two people shooting it out. They design it and choreograph it like a dance. And that's something that we should all be grateful for. And I think it's really, really cool. There's now a cultural and almost mythology surrounding guns now, like the example Westerns created this, lone gunslinger, and the sheriff comes to town, that kind of cultural icon that involves the guns. Now there's also the action hero, there's the Rambos and, Commando, Predator, stuff like that. That's kind of the oiled up, greased up, muscle bearing guy who's shooting from the hip and manages to hit every single shot that he wants and no one ever hits him. Imagine that, but still a cultural icon in its own right. Now, their guns are a part of storytelling in the US specifically because our history started with the barrel of a gun, basically. And the American Revolution wouldn't have been possible, most likely, unless guns were involved. Even if we don't think about it consciously, guns have been a part of our culture and a part of these mythos that we've created on the characters that I just mentioned. There's also a deeper level, that the idea of independence and control, even if we don't think about it, we've been trained to associate guns with these ideals. Now, another reason why we love guns in movies is because movies create a moral distance from us and what's happening on the screen. There's a reason why we, cheer on John Wick, even though he's killing 100 guys in a movie. All those guys in real life would have had, mothers, kids, children, everything like that. But we still are like, yeah, fuck that guy, because it's John Wick and he's the best. So, there's just that separation, that suspension of disbelief that movies automatically give us that we love. And it is that much more fun to see it on screen like that. So why do we enjoy it? We know that there is a distance. We know it's not really happening. But at the same time, deep down, most people have that innate feeling of, relating to that character, of trying to get revenge, for example, or something along those lines, or righting a wrong that society or the law could not handle. That's why the Punisher, the John Wick series exists, Death Wish, they made like 7 of those in the 70s, RoboCop, all of them have that same kind of core theme of getting back where the law didn't quite handle it.
Any scumbag, any lowlife, any maggot piece of shit that I put down, I did it because I liked it. Hell, I loved it. I'm sitting here, I'm just itching. I'm itching to do it again. And you think what? You think you're gonna send me to a nut house? Some doctor, they're gonna get me to stop from doing what I want to do? Well, that ain't happening. Not on my watch. You people, you call me the Punisher, ain't that right? The big bad Punisher. Here I am. You want it?
Remove the witness.
I am the Punisher. I'm right here. You want it? I'll give it to you.
Movies like that let us experience the danger and the power and the tension without real world consequences. And like I said, everyone has that feeling of, wanting to right wrongs that they can't really do in real life, and they can't, without going to jail. Now we're going to get into the movie guns that I own and that really influenced me. So let's just get into it here. Some of these aren't 100% screen accurate. I don't really care about cloning. A lot of people are super nerding out about the clones and everything like that. I'm not that big of a deal for me. I just like having close enough. We're going to start off with the handguns. First off is going to be arguably the most iconic and most, recognizable movie gun that you can think of, the Walther PPK. Now, mine in particular is in 22 long rifle. It is a Walther and everything. I love that gun. It's so much fun. That's the closest that you can get to actually having the movie quiet, suppressed shooting gun if you're using subsonic, even though most ammo is subsonic out of that gun. But that gun is so much fun. And again, it's not black like James Bond's is, and it's not 380 like James Bond's is, but 22 is much more accessible, much more quiet when you actually suppress it. So for that reason, I got that one. And much cheaper, of course. Next up, seen in many, many movies, and of course in millions of households around the US, the Glock 19. Glock 19 is uber reliable, going to be, around forever. They're always going to make parts for it. And of course, super iconic in its own right. Next is, like we were talking about, the lone gunslinger, Ruger Vaquero. This one is in 357 mag. Again, not really screen accurate. Cowboys would have used 45 Colt back then, but 357 is much more accessible. And I do already have, 2 other guns. I have a lever gun and a J-frame in 357. I debated on putting the J-frame there as well because the J-frame is used in many movies. A lot of detectives or whatever would carry it, or a Colt, police special or something along those lines. But I thought the Vaquero is arguably more iconic, as recognizable as a cowboy gun. Next up, 1911. This one is my 5-inch 1911. It's a Sig Sauer. I chose this one just because it's the closest that I have to a GI one. I used to have a GI one many years ago, but I ended up selling it. Now I have this one and my little 4 1/4 inch Ed Brown, which I also love, but they're not, quote, mil-spec, whatever, but still iconic. Been around since 1911, of course, so it's going to be probably around for another 100 years. I know the guns themselves will handle it. So it also won 2 world wars, no big deal, and did fight in the GWAT a little bit. So next one again is an example of me not having a one-for-one movie clone, and that's the DL-44 Han Solo's blaster. I wasn't going to take a Mauser and chop it up and make all those modifications and deface, a historical item like that. So I took the cheaper and easier route, and I built this 22 LR myself, and it's made with a CMMG barrel and bolt kit. Now CMMG sells their own version of this gun that you can buy on their website and all that good stuff. So, I highly suggest to get out there and make one or buy one from them. It is tons of fun. And now they even have their own suppressor that looks like the flash hider that's used on the gun, the prop gun. After that, we have the icon, the Desert Eagle. 50 caliber, 50 AE to be exact, polished chrome Desert Eagle. This gun is so much fun. It is outrageous, to say the least, and it's so iconic, used in so many movies. The bad guy usually is the one that has it, but, Deadpool also has it too, and he's kind of a anti-hero or whatever. He's got black ones, of course, but the polished chrome one, I feel like I could not, get anything else. I thought about the gold, but too gaudy for me personally. I'm not that much. No, thank you. But the polished chrome is gorgeous. I love that gun so much. And of course, it's featured in so many movies throughout the years. Next, let's get into the long guns. First one is going to be good old AK-47. Again, it was literally featured. It's literally featured on a country's flag in Africa. It is the most recognizable gun in the world by far. Someone does not speak a lick of English or any language. You can show him that gun and they will likely know or say AK or Kalashnikov, depending on the region of your world that you're in. Not much to be said. There's 1,000,001 videos on the AK, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but I had to get the underfolder myself because the underfolder is so iconic, so 80s terrorist or 80s action movie-esque, where the bad guy always seems to have the underfolding one, and because it just looks cool. I'm a sucker for folding stocks myself.
It doesn't break, jam, or overheat. It will shoot whether it's covered in mud or filled with sand. It's so easy, even a child can use it, and they do.
Next is the M4 variant. Now, this one was a tough one because I have like 8 ARs. They're all set up differently, but I figured I would include just the mil-spec M4 and M16 here for you, just for the sake of showing what, they should look like, but I will put in some B-roll footage of my other ARs as well, because there is 1,000,001 configurations that you can do for an AR, and they've pretty much all been put into screen from, old movies of the past, showing Vietnam with the original M16s, and the newest, cool guy movies like John Wick or, Extraction or whatever, showing the tier 1 setups and all that good stuff. Next up is the pump shotgun. Specifically, this one's a Mossberg 500, and I also have a Remington 870. That one's a short barrel, kind of sawed-off edition. Both are arguably the second most featured guns in movies and media throughout the world over. So the pump shotgun is instantly recognizable. The sound of a pump shotgun, no matter what language you speak, that means get the fuck out of here, basically. So I could not include a pump action shotgun, even though there is some other shotguns that are arguably more iconic and more associated with movies specifically, which, spoiler alert, comes later. Stay tuned. But the 500 and the 870 are iconic in their own right, and they deserve the place on this list.
Clever girl.
Next is the venerable M1 Garand. Now, everyone has seen this gun. You know the iconic ping noise. And of course, if you ever watched Saving Private Ryan or you watched a multitude of World War II movies, you've seen the M1 in action. You know what it looks like. And, it was known as the gun that won World War II, basically, for us. And, I think it was Blackjack Pershing that said the deadliest weapon in the world was a Marine and his rifle. Thanks to that rifle. It was also called the greatest battle implement of the entire World War. Now, an honorable mention on that one, since we're talking about real old guns like this, would be bolt-action rifles. So here's my Bergara bolt-action rifle. I also have a Remington 308 here. Now, these ones aren't, like your daddy's or granddaddy's deer rifle, per se, which is probably the more common one that you would see in a movie, but I figured I would just, give them an honorable mention on this list as well. The next one that's going to be more movie-specific is going to be the Marlin 1895 lever action. That one is used in Jurassic World, and it is iconic in its own right, and you still can't find these guns on the shelves anywhere because of how iconic that one single movie made that gun.
My favorite prop in this film is probably Owen's rifle. It just really encompasses his character. It's very manly, and he's of course, he's the hero of the show, so you want to give him a really great way to protect everyone in the park.
But lever action guns in general are considered to be the gun that won the West for obvious reasons, so they are featured in a crap ton of Old West movies. The next gun in this list, and one of the most iconic as well, is going to be MP5. You've seen it in Die Hard and Predator as well, and so many movies in between. Matrix, I can't even think of much more off the top of my head, of course, but I'll put some B-roll footage in there. I have two of them myself. I got the longer and the shorter configuration. Next on my list will probably be the SD version because those are so cool. And again, iconic. I love the MP5. So much fun to shoot. Still, after 60 years of it being around, still used by law enforcement and militaries today. There's something to be said about that. Next up is my Springfield Hellion. Springfield Hellion, and this one is kind of a placeholder for bullpups. And I actually have a separate video on bullpups in media that I will link to this video here as well. But I am in love with the Hellion specifically because it is lefty friendly. Yes, I am left-handed. I know, I'm weird. But the Hellion in particular can be swapped either way. And again, this one represents kind of Starship Troopers for me. And I just absolutely love it in my eyes. Bullpups are so cool. Not super practical, not better than an AR-15 or an AK, but they definitely have their own place. And there's a reason why we keep on trying to make them stick around. The very last gun on this list, and arguably the most iconic and recognizable, the Spaz 12. This is one of, allegedly 1,800 that were ever imported into the US. It is a great shooting gun. I mean, it's not practical by any means or any stretch of the imagination, not super reliable, but super fun. I love this gun for obvious reasons. Clever girl. So I love it.
You ever found yourself wondering what this little hook is for? You can actually turn it to either side, too. What if I told you it was for this?
I did have some honorable mentions that I thought were worth shouting out briefly. This is a Sterling 22 long rifle. My dad got it for my mom in the 80s. It's kind of a piece of crap, to be honest, but definitely worth it. That's featured in a bunch of movies. Usually they're 25 ACP. This one is just to represent gold guns in particular. There's so many movies with gold guns, so I know this one's not all gold, but I figured it was a good placeholder. This one represents two things. This is a Model 29, like Dirty Harry has, but it is a short one. It's 4-inch barrel. And it also represents just engraved guns, because there is a bunch of movies that have, really fancy engravings and stuff on their guns like that. So just want to represent that as well. This one represents all Colt revolvers. This one is an Anaconda in 44 mag, but it kind of reminds me of the Python, of course, in 357, like in Walking Dead, and in many other movies. So again, just kind of represents all 44 mags to me. Last but certainly not least is the M14, featured in many classics like Full Metal Jacket and other Vietnam-era movies. To sum up my thoughts on this, humans have been telling stories since the beginning of civilization. Literally the earliest things that we wrote down as humans We're stories and storytelling, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. So movies are a natural extension of that storytelling. And, as we advance in the 21st century, it'll just get more and more advanced and guns will get more and more cool, hopefully. So it's safe to say that movies and the cultural impacts of the guns in movies speak for themselves. Guns are a storytelling tool, and they can also take on a mythology of their own, like Mjolnir or Excalibur or Gandalf's staff. They have their own identities at a certain point, like the DL-44 or Spaz-12, like I was mentioning. They have identities and they show you instantly recognizable what they're from, and there's something just so special about that. Again, what we love about them is what they represent. They're an equalizer, power, control, the ability to overcome adversity, even in real life events like the American Revolution, like I mentioned. So in the end, it's not about the guns, it's what they represent. Guns are a tool, and the real reason we love them is how they make us feel. I know I do. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything, or if there's any ones that I just totally spaced out, overlooked, anything like that. So, let's have a minute word from our sponsor. Just kidding. Not sponsored by anyone. I ain't got time for that. But it really helps me out if you would like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching.